Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Entitled People. As usual, we got some more Reddit stories to check out today, so let's get into it. Teacher screams at me because of my Tourette's. So before I tell the story, I should mention that I have a minor form of Tourette's that causes me to twitch. I was somewhat blessed to not have any verbal tics that would have made me the target of harassment during school, but sometimes people saw me as that twitchy kid. Anyways, on to the story. So it starts about a decade ago when I was still in school. I had an English teacher, Mr. M. He was kinda nice, but sometimes he took things way too personally. Like if you called his class boring, he'd act like you keyed his car or something. So one day during class, as we were working on homework, I couldn't understand a question, and rather than being humiliated by asking for help on an easy question, I decided to wait until my free period where I can ask for help from my resource teacher. So I put the homework away and decided to read a Percy Jackson book I had in my locker. When I raised my hand to go get it, I started having a twitching fit, as I call it. It causes my arms and hands to clamp up and my fingers do kind of a one-handed clap thing. So it sounds like I was snapping my fingers at Mr. M to get his attention, and he did not like that. As soon as he heard it, he whipped his head right to me and angrily stormed up to me. He then put his fingers right in my face and started snapping them and asking, "How does it feel being snapped at like a dog?" Being completely blown away by this sudden behavior, I could only just stammer, "Huh? What?" Then he said, "Snapping your fingers at someone is damn rude. You should be ashamed of yourself." I then, on reaction, said, "I didn't snap at you. I have Tourette's and did this," and then proceeded to do the one-handed clap thing. This only seemed to infuriate him even more, as he proceeded to scream at me to go to the office and he'd be down there to speak to the principal about my, quote, dehumanizing actions. Completely scared crapless, I decided instead to grab all of my things and just run home. I didn't even check out in the office. I just ran halfway and then took the bus the rest of the way home. I then spent the rest of the day hiding in my room, petting my cat in comfort, dreading the call the school will make to my parents. I had built it up in my head that I'd done something very wrong, and that I was about to be suspended from school and have my ass beat from my parents. My heart sank when I heard my mom come home, and she came in and listened to the home phone answering machine. A few minutes later, she knocked on my door and asked, "OP, did you leave early from school today?" I stayed silent at first, hoping I could pretend I wasn't there, but then I figured if I came clean, maybe my punishment will be less severe. So I let my mom in my room and told her everything. When I was done, she had a bewildered look on her face, and she said, "Wait, the teacher did what? All because he thought you snapped at him?" I nodded quietly, not sure if I was in trouble or not. She then said, "It should say in your IEP that you have Tourette's, as well as nonverbal learning disorder. I'll have a talk to the principal about your teacher and how you can't control your tics." After that, I felt a huge weight lifted off my chest, and all I could do that night was hug my cat. The next day before school started, the principal was waiting outside the school greeting kids, and when he saw me, he smiled and said, "Don't worry, OP, everything was taken care of." Eventually, everything blew over, and Mr. M ignored me the rest of the year, which I was fine with. Honestly, that guy should not be a teacher. Someone with that kind of temperament to just go off on a kid like that is not someone you want as an educator. Even if the situation wasn't caused by Tourette's and the student was actually just being rude and snapping their fingers at the teacher, that still would be totally unacceptable. But it does seem like the teacher did face some kind of repercussions for doing this. My girlfriend cheated and then asked to date us both. I took our entire apartment with me on my way out. Edit to clear up confusion. I am a woman and my ex is a woman. We are both queer women. It was my first serious relationship and we had a dog, cat, and apartment together. I was extremely dedicated to her and I paid most of the bills and did all of the life management stuff. Tip: look for an equal. I paid for basically every furnishing in the home despite her making more. My ex was horrible with money. My ex had met some girl online and I caught her cheating. She gaslit me until I snooped and found the proof. She then had the gall to ask me if she could date us both, while she figured out what she wanted. I was done. I booked movers. Moving day came. They packed everything except her bed, desk, clothes, and 2 $5 IKEA coffee tables, and goodbye every single piece of kitchenware. Here's where I got really petty. I left the paper plates and plastic cutlery, but took everything else. When I left the apartment, it had no sofa, no dining table, no chairs, no wall decor, no bathroom materials except for one roll of toilet paper. I didn't even leave the soap in the kitchen because I'd bought that. And I didn't even want the shower curtain. It was a dollar store find, but I wasn't about to let her keep it. The look on her face when she realized I was leaving was stunned, because she didn't realize what that would mean for her. Then she told all of her friends that I was a bitch for taking all of our stuff, that only I paid for. She had the gall to expect to cheat on me and expect to be allowed to keep the things that I had bought. She then, as I was moving out, asked me to stay, but when I refused, she lined up a new roommate with an aggressive dog who basically destroyed the apartment. She was evicted 3 months later for non-payment of rent and spent months living at a campsite. I was even nice and left her a letter detailing the bills and when they were due. Made no difference. She's tried to be friends a few times since, seemingly forgetting how we ended things. Karen on plane complains because a baby is crying. During a flight, a mother was sitting a few rows up, and her newborn baby was crying. Poor mom was doing everything she could to try to comfort the little thing. But anyone who's had a baby or even been around one knows there's only so much you can do. A Karen seated across the aisle calls a flight attendant over, and angrily gestures with her palm-up hand toward the mother and baby, as if to say, do your job and do something about this. The flight attendant's response? Ma'am, that's a baby. Babies cry. And walked away. That's gotta be one of the best ways to deal with this, just brief and to the point. Really, what does she expect them to do? And this comment here says this: my friend is a flight attendant and she was written up but not fired for saying, "What would you like me to do, put it in the overhead compartment?" when an old man was complaining about a crying child. Absolute legend, that one. I am entitled to your backyard. Context: my father inherited an older house from my grandparents after my grandmother died, and my grandfather started to have nothing to do. After they moved in, neighborhoods began to pop up around the house, and most of the new neighbors were really nice, but the closest neighbors are very entitled. So my house is a medium-sized house, but we have a 2-acre backyard. On multiple occasions, people have asked to use our backyard for storage, but they were nice people and we did not really mind. But as more houses began to pop up around our backyard, people began to suddenly feel attached to our backyard, as if it was their own. They began to have picnics and photo shoots in our backyard. This made us angry, but after we asked them to stop, they would for a while. But there was an old lady that was an exception. This old lady was known around the neighborhood for sleeping around to get her way, so we already knew she was pretty crazy. The lady asked us to store some gardening tools in our backyard, but there was still some land that was hers on her side of the property line following her fence, so we allowed it. But repeatedly, the tools kept piling onto our side. We repeatedly asked her to keep it on her side, but the problem would only be fixed for about 2 weeks before she did it again. This aggravated us, but not to the point to make a huge fuss. But things changed very quickly. One day the lady asked if she could make a gate adding to her existing small fence to our backyard. When we asked why, the lady said, "My dogs don't like pooping in our yard, so we need your yard. Plus, I like your yard." My father said, "Ma'am, this is not your property. You can't just build a gate to our yard for your convenience." "But I need it. I know you don't use all of that huge yard you have. You need to share." "Ma'am, you are not building a gate to our yard. Now please, get off my property before I call the police." After this, the lady pouted and left, and she complied. No gate was built. But her entitled behavior never stopped. Over the next couple of weeks, she complained about our trees, saying it was dyeing the rustic scenery and we needed to change it. It is our yard. We should not have to change it to her liking. We just shut her down and we thought that was it. Oh boy, were we wrong. The worst was yet to come. We had a tree bordering the property line, and one day the lady came onto our property without warning to ask if she could hire workers to come through our backyard because hers was too small. My parents were not home, so we were naturally scared. In a panic, I called my mom to tell her a woman was at the door and we did not know what to do. My mom told me to tell the lady to get off the property and my father would call her. After some convo, we complied, and she said the work would be done in about a week. She did not tell us when they would start working. We have dogs and they are very protective, so we needed to know when they would come so we could put them in a kennel. Now that weekend I had to be in Alabama for a wrestling tournament. We had finished the wrestling tournament and started the 8-hour drive back when my mom got a phone call. It was my sister. The conversation went like this. "Mom, do you know that there are people in our backyard?" "What?" said my mom. "Yeah, they have some tree trimming trucks and equipment. Should I put the dogs up?" "Yes, put them up now. I'll call you back." Now my mom continues to call the lady on speakerphone. "Yes," said the lady. "Why is there trucks in my backyard?" asked my mom. "We talked about this. I told you I would have workers trim the trees on my side through your yard. You never told me they were coming today." "Calm down, an old lady like me can't take your screaming. You need to respect me." "Respect you? All you have done is not effing respect us. You constantly use our yard as your own. You can't just yell at me. I am your neighbor. You just can't expect to have such a huge backyard and someone not want you to share it. You need to share it." "It's my effing backyard," said my mom. "Well, maybe just be a little nicer next time and remember to share." The lady proceeded to talk about how she was an old lady and deserved respect. She also spoke about how since she has been a nice neighbor, she deserved to be spoken nice to and not yelled at. My mother quickly shut her down. Shortly after that, the lady hung up on us. After this, my mom proceeded to tell my father of the events that just occurred. Now my grandfather still lives with us, and he helps us from time to time. My father called him to see if he could arrange a fence being made. My grandfather also had enough, and had the perfect plan. My grandfather found rusty pieces of tin sheets, and only prettied up the side that would face us, leaving the entitled neighbor with a rusty tin fence facing their home. We put these up shortly after the tree trimming was finished. At least she got the rustic look she wanted, and we never heard from her again. I guess she got the memo. Leave your fire alarm to go off all night? Enjoy your building door being broken down. In the late 90s, I was living in Sydney in a high-rise apartment near the MLC Center. It overlooked the 14th floor pool deck, which was a nice view, but as a result, there was a big open space, and any noise would tend to echo off the nearby buildings. At one point, a building a block away had this fire alarm that kept going off in the middle of the night. There is a fire, evacuate the building, and sirens would blare over and over for hours. The third night it happened, I went for a walk, found the building, and called the company's after-hours number. No, nothing they could do, apparently. Tough for me and every other city center apartment dweller in the vicinity. Eventually I had a bright idea and called the fire service and reported the fire. I explained that I didn't know if there was actually a fire or not, but that I could hear the fire and evacuation alarm going off, and that no one seemed to be doing anything about it. Took another walk shortly after, to see firemen breaking into the building to attend to the emergency. Strangely, I never heard that alarm again. Well, that's going to be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed and hit that subscribe button for more. So have an awesome day. I'll see you next time.